Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Welcome to Mission Evolution, where we explore the spiritual and scientific frontiers of human potential. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka, and today we'll step into the shadows of the unexplained with Elliott Van Dusen, Director of the Paranormal Phenomenon Research and Investigation Organization, or PPRI.net. From forensic investigation to supernatural inquiry, a retired corporal in the Major Crime Unit of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Elliott brings a unique blend of science, logic, open-minded exploration to one of the human's oldest mysteries, life beyond the physical. Together, we'll examine the fine line between science and supernatural and look ahead to the 2025 Halifax Paranormal Symposium happening this November. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss a single moment of this enlightening journey into the unknown. Elliott, thank you for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Well, thanks for having me back. I missed you last year. Our schedules didn't allow for us to tee up there together, but I'm happy to be back on Mission Evolution.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. I so love your topic and your symposium. I wish I could come see it myself. So, what first drew you to explore the world of paranormal phenomenon, and how did that evolve into the founding of the Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation (PPRI) organization?
Yeah, I get asked that quite a bit, whether or not I had an experience that drew me into the paranormal, but I give it credit to unsolved mysteries because I knew I wanted to be a police officer and I knew that I specifically wanted to be a homicide detective. So unsolved mysteries caught my attention with all their really interesting cold cases. And then every once in a while, they throw in a UFO story or a ghost story. And that also caught my attention. And then in 1997, I discovered the television show The X-Files, but it had been on air since 1993. But I thought it was really interesting that you had two law enforcement officers that were investigating claims of the supernatural. And so I decided to start my nonprofit organization, PPRI. We started out by collecting local ghost stories and folklore, which then led into investigations. And when I moved to Halifax, I met my colleague, Daryl Walsh, and he teaching parapsychology courses at the Nova Scotia Community College. So I enrolled in those, and after that, the rest is history. I ended up taking as many courses in the paranormal that I could, and PPRI now has been running for 28 years, doing investigations, research, and educational activities.
How does PPRI differentiate itself from other paranormal research groups in terms of scientific methodology and professional standards?
Yeah, I have high expectations for my team for sure. One thing that we don't do is we're not a proactive organization per se. If we have nothing on the go, one of my investigators wants to check out a location, then I'm open to the idea. But for the most part, we're a reactive organization, much like law enforcement would be. Where you receive a call for service. We would receive a call from a family that has an inquiry. Usually it's haunting related, and we'll conduct our interviews. We do either a face-to-face interview or a video interview. And with my police training, especially in interviewing, we look for nonverbal cues. We look for signs of mental health issues. We have a very thorough questionnaire that we go forward with. And then depending on our financial situation at the time, I'll authorize a full field investigation because we don't charge our clients for money. And investigations can be expensive. For example, we did one this year and it was around $2,000. We're all volunteers. A lot of my volunteers work full time. So they're donating their evenings and weekends and away from family. We do a lot of fundraising by holding educational events and selling merchandise. I donate all the proceeds from the sales of my books back into the organization so that it doesn't cost the public any money to use our services.
With your background in law enforcement, how have investigative and forensic skills translated into your paranormal work?
Well, besides interviewing, I've also taken a stricter stance on handling evidence, for example. So normally what we do after an investigation is everybody will turn in their equipment, whether that's a camera, memory card, a digital recorder. It will go to one person, usually our professional photographer, to then download, analyze, and upload all the information to our secure shared drive. Um, that's certainly one aspect. The other one is certainly I look at safety issues. I never send any of my investigators alone. I'll always send at least two for safety reasons. We actually just created a new policy as well that when we all go our separate ways from an investigation or an event, they have to message the lead investigator to let them know that they've arrived home safely. So we do take all that very seriously.
What danger do you expect them to run into?
Well, it could be anything. My wife and I just traveled to Fredericton and Moncton, New Brunswick, to promote the Halifax Paranormal Symposium. We ended up getting a flat tire on the way and were sidelined for about an hour. So I stayed in touch with Chris Stiles, a UFO researcher that was also going to be presenting. Yeah, I let him know I was still on schedule to be there, but I wouldn't have as much prep time as I had. So you never know, what could happen to you on the way home, especially a lot of times we'll leave events very late at night, especially if we're doing a public ghost hunt. They usually run from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So lots of wildlife in Nova Scotia on those highways. You just never know what you'll run into.
Literally. So in your view, what constitutes credible evidence of paranormal activity? And how does PPRI ensure that the investigations remain unbiased and verifiable?
Well, there's certainly a lot of bias that you have to worry about. I'm a believer in the paranormal. I call myself a critical believer because I do try and look at every explanation before saying that I can't understand this or that this is a true anomaly. But we do use some scientific equipment, such as electromagnetic field radiation detectors, to look for unshielded wires. I always tell everyone when we're giving an educational event that, it's not a ghost detector like you would see on TV. There's actually no piece of equipment that can detect ghosts or human consciousness, not even medical equipment for that reason. But, we use things like the EMF device to check to see if there's unshielded wires or excessive amounts of radiation coming from an electronic device, because we know through scientific research in the laboratories, especially the work of the late Dr. Michael Persinger, that when somebody's temporal lobes are exposed to excessive amounts of EMF radiation, that they can start to feel that like they're being watched. They can have auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinations, and it can mimic symptoms of a haunting. So we do use regular tools that would be used by tradespeople to check for environmental anomalies.
Many critics dismiss paranormal research as a pseudoscience. How do you respond to skeptics who claim that the phenomenon like hauntings or psychic activity can be explained by psychology or coincidence?
I can see the argument to call parapsychology, which is the scientific study of extrasensory perception or your psychic abilities, mind-matter interaction or psychokinesis, the ability to manipulate objects or your environment with your mind, and survival research, which is your near-death experiences, your ghosts and hauntings. But parapsychology is actually a social science because we're studying people's experiences. So it is a soft science. I can understand, the physicists and biologists, chemists, chemicists, why they are frustrated with parapsychology. because a lot of it is very spontaneous and it just happens when you least expect it, and it's very hard to replicate, especially the type of work that I do in field investigation. So I totally understand that. We actually try and replicate stuff as well in haunting situations. Just a quick example, I had a cast iron pot, which is not supposed to give off electromagnetic radiation. It was sending our EMF reader absolutely crazy. So the first thing I did, obviously, is look around. There's no outlets. There's no lights near it that's causing this to happen. It wouldn't stop. As soon as I lifted the lid off the cast iron pot, it stopped. Put the lid back on, tried to replicate it. We couldn't. Not saying that event is paranormal, but that was certainly an anomaly that we caught in the environment that we couldn't replicate. That's one small example from an actual haunting case.
What are some of the most compelling cases that PPRI has investigated that defy conventional explanation?
Well, one of my favorite ones is probably the first time I think that I ever experienced the paranormal. It was way back in 2004. We got contacted by a family that had just purchased an 82-year-old home in Kentville, Nova Scotia. And they said that they were seeing a female apparition walk down their stairwell. They were having pennies materialize in their home. They saw the ghost of one of their basset hounds that had passed away, and they were seeing images show up in photographs. So certainly had quite a bit of phenomena that they were reporting. Conducted an interview with them. There was no self-disclosed or notable mental health issues. They seemed reliable. So we sent a small team of 4 investigators down to the home. And the first night, we did get a strange EMF reading by the stairwell where they would see the apparition come down. We would later discover on a second investigation that was due to unshielded wires. So we did make the recommendation that they would fix that to avoid possible electrical fire. But that one night around 5 a.m., I asked one of my investigators to go check the videotape and the battery camera. This is back before cell phones, and you had the big clunky, video recorder with the VHS tapes in it. And sure enough, around 5 o'clock in the morning, when he went to go check, Penny had appeared by the base of the tripod. And the husband and the 2 daughters had gone to bed several hours before. The only way that you could get into the kitchen was you would have to walk by us, the investigators. We were all situated in the living room with the wife, so nobody had walked by us. The wife hadn't got up and gone into the kitchen. And like I said, we would check it every hour on the hour, and we couldn't explain that. The second time when we went back to the house, it certainly confirmed that there was something unusual going on there. One of my investigators was outside with night vision and could actually see a shadow moving in one of the upstairs bedrooms. So, of course, he gets on the radio and asks whether or not any of us are upstairs, but none of us were. So he decided to go upstairs and check. And when he opened the bedroom door, he saw the female apparition of a little girl standing on the bed. Once he composed himself, he got on the radio and called us upstairs to come take a look. But by that time, the apparition had disappeared. There was just a drape that he said had fluttered from like hanging from the ground, fluttered up to lay on the bed. And we had an EMF reader that was giving off high EMF readings at that time. Again, not near any electrical outlets. The room was ice cold. I had never felt cold like that until years later when I was on Major Crimes up in Yellowknife, and we got called.
We're gonna have to leave a cliffhanger because it's time for a station break. Elliott and I will return very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. How does paranormal investigation work? With us this hour discussing the science behind paranormal investigation is Elliott Van Dusen, the Director of Paranormal Phenomenon Research and Investigation Organization. Elliott, so that is the question. Can you walk us through a typical investigation process from initial contact to final report, and what safeguards do you use to prevent contamination or bias?
Yeah, sure. Just to quickly finish that story too before the break, I had never felt cold in that room until years later when I was on Major Crimes with the RCMP, and we had to go to Nunavut to help Nunavut RCMP. and it was like minus 50 out. And when you walked outside, your eyes would instantly freeze, and you could actually pull ice off your eyelashes. So very, very unusual experience in that house. So certainly with the pennies materializing and Adam seeing the apparition, yeah, that was just something that we couldn't explain. As far as preventing contamination, I think the big thing is, and we always teach people this when we do public ghost hunts, is limiting the number of people that are there. I just noticed in the last little while when clients are contacting us and it's the day of the investigation, they're messaging it, and we're calling, and they're like, hey, our friends are really interested in this. Like they want to know if they can pop over and take a look. I always say, well, they can come over to meet the team like when we get there, but then after that, they have to go. I look at it the same as like a police would with the crime scene. You're not going to just invite a ton of people with the public and the media to come tramping through your crime scene. It's the same with an investigation. The more people that are there, then the more contamination that can happen, whether that's noise contamination, biases, different things like that. So we do try and contain the scene. We always let the homeowner stay there, because I understand, you don't want 4 or 5 strangers that you have no idea, tramping through your home and going through your bedroom and like all your personal space. So, that makes sense. And certainly knowing how to use your equipment is important. I always, sometimes there's pieces of equipment that we don't use a whole lot that I'll have to brush up on the manual before we use it, because we want to make sure that the settings are correct and that you're not getting, false readings and things like that can contaminate your investigation.
How does technology such as the electromagnetic sensors, infrared cameras, or audio analysis enhance your ability to detect or document anomalies?
Yeah, so one EMF reader that we use is called the GQ390, and I like that one. It's a bit of a higher end model, but I do like it because it'll actually record all the data for you on the device, and then you can plug it into a laptop later, download the data, and you'll have your chart of the recordings all captured for you, rather than have your notebook and have to write down master bedroom readings were between this and this. So certainly technology has advanced ghost investigations. Thermometers, we do have a FLIR camera, which is a forward infrared looking camera, thermal camera, really nice. I always do a demonstration with the public. I'll show them the wall, and it'll just be cold. I'll put my hand on there for 2 seconds and pull it away, and then put the thermal camera on, and you'll actually see the heat from my hand still on the wall. So I got that because during an investigation in Exeter, I saw a doorknob turn 3/4 of the way on me when I was in a little boy's room, and the mom was downstairs. I opened the door up, and there was nobody behind it. And I thought to myself, oh, that would have been so nice to have the thermal camera, to check and see if there was some sort of handprint on there. Same with footsteps as well, because your shoes are a bit different. It won't leave as much of a heat signature, but if you're in bare feet, for sure, it'll leave a really good signature. So you just never know. It's certainly a positive tool to have in your toolbox. And the last new piece of equipment that we bought were body cameras, because I've heard so many stories of, like we said earlier, the paranormal so spontaneous that it can happen at any point in time. And we were doing an investigation once, and a team before us had been there the night before. And apparently a phone, old rotary phone that's not plugged in, not connected to anything, rang on them while they were at this museum. And I said, oh my God, tell me that they got it on video or something. And the curator said, no, we were all in a different room. We just heard it ring, ran in, and that's it. And I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? Being a former law enforcement officer, I wonder how much body worn cameras cost. And I went on Amazon, and you know what? You can get pretty decent ones. The ones we use are Boblov, Boblov, and they're actually not that expensive. They last for about 12 hours, so almost like a law enforcement shift. And I figure, you know what? At the start of our investigation, we'll put it on, wear it for the whole investigation. That way, if something happens, perhaps maybe you'll just at least catch the audio. And sure enough, just a couple of weeks ago, my team were investigating a haunted house in Dartmouth. They had set up a service bell upstairs, and something was ringing the service bell when there was nobody upstairs, and they managed to catch that on the body-worn camera's audio. So, it paid off in dividends right there. So.
Do you believe that paranormal activity is more about energy and consciousness than disembodied spirits? And if so, what implications does that have for science and spirituality?
I think it's a mix. I think that what I believe. I subscribe to the survival theory in parapsychology. So what parapsychologists believe is that when we die from our physical body, our human consciousness somehow survives. Dr. Sam Perina with New York University has done 2 different studies of people that are terminal, and they have permission to bring those people back. And what he can say is, or what we like to say in law enforcement, is beyond a reasonable doubt. He can say that the human consciousness can survive outside the physical body for at least 3 hours. And he knows that from the studies that he has done and from recollections of people that had died, been brought back, and have provided accurate information that was corroborated. But I also know from parapsychology that without a physical body, the only thing that they have is their consciousness, their personality, or what we call the mind. And it has to somehow interact with the physical environment on our plane. So we call that psychokinesis, or mind-matter interaction. So they have to use that in order to open doors, create knocks, different things like that. The movie Ghost is a great example of that, when the sleazy coworker was sitting next to Demi Moore and he was trying to put some moves on her, and Patrick Swayze gets upset and jumps over the couch and knocks over that picture. He realizes that he was able to affect the physical environment. So he goes back to the subway station and talks to the ghost that really knows how to use psychokinesis. And for that movie, they actually did quite a bit of research and tried to make it as accurate as possible. So, that's a Hollywood example.
How does PPRI balance scientific method with the more intuitive or metaphysical side of paranormal research?
Yeah, we do that because I do have a medium on my team, Jody Russell, and I've worked with her on a few different cases, and she has provided information which has really impressed me or wowed me. And other times we just can't corroborate it, but Jody has provided some information on some cases that we have been able to corroborate. An example of that, I just presented a case to the Society for Scientific Exploration's 43rd annual conference about one of our investigations up in Amherst. And one of the things that she had talked about was where the family's dog was barking and acting very strange. She felt that there was a male presence that had died from a heart condition there, that he lived at the residence. He died at the residence, and it was heart related. About 2 days later, the family had a historian in town doing research on their property, and they had found a death record for a John William Stevenson that lived at that address and had died at that address from a heart condition. And we don't tell Jody any information before we go to the investigation. So we use a blind protocol where she has absolutely no information about this. So she wouldn't have been able to do research on this beforehand because she didn't know the address. She didn't know any names involved. So we do try and balance that out. And anything that she gets that we can't prove, like that's a really good example of something we could prove, then we include it in what I call subjective evidence, because we have no way to scientifically prove it. So we classify that under subjective, and we let other people, decide what they want to believe.
In your research, how much influence do you believe human perception has on paranormal experience?
Well, certainly I do. It does play, a large factor. Um, I also find, if somebody has been living in a location for a long time and perhaps it is haunted, they start to get what my colleague Daryl Walsh has nicknamed the kitchen sink syndrome, where everything that seems to be happening in the home kind of gets blamed on the paranormal. We were literally interviewing a lady at a house once, and she thought she heard a noise, and she's like, "Did you guys hear that?" And there was like 4 or 5 of us sitting at the table, and none of us heard anything. And we just looked at her and said, "No, we didn't hear anything." And then she's just like, "Oh, okay, I thought I heard something." That's an example of where somebody has just been primed in a location for so long that they may be biased or jumping to conclusions. So you do run into that, which can make your investigation a slightly more difficult if you've got one of those true believer clients, and you're there to try and give that rational explanation on what's happening.
Do you think fear or expectation can actually manifest certain phenomenon or alter how we interpret unexplained events?
Yeah, I think so, especially the expectation part. I always talk about the Phillips experiment that occurred in Toronto in the 1970s. It was a group of paranormal researchers that would attend their office every day, and they wanted to try and create their own poltergeist. So they came up with this fictional character named Philip. And every day they'd come in, they'd talk to Philip, and eventually they started to have raps occur on their table to answer questions that they would ask. So literally, they were able to create their own poltergeist case. So I do think that human expectation can play a role, and fear as well can play a role. I know a lot of people will fear the unknown, which makes sense. Humans are behavioral creatures, and when things are uncertain or unknown, it makes us uneasy. So yeah, certainly I think that both of those things can affect somebody's perception.
Has there ever been an investigation that fundamentally changed your personal belief system or understanding of reality?
Well, it would have to be the Exeter case for sure. That case really rattled me. There was just so much activity that I'd witnessed. I witnessed flies materializing out of nowhere. The home would just be loaded with these house flies, almost like the movie Amityville Horror. I heard 3 distinct footsteps approach me when it was just myself and the homeowner there. Fire alarms went off on their own accord and would only be turned off if they were splashed with holy water. And we checked with Kitty, the brand that makes the fire alarm, and they couldn't figure out why that would have happened. There was a strange message that had appeared on an iPhone, and Apple had no explanation for why the iOS software would have responded like that. So it was a kind of a really nasty entity that was picking on the homeowner and the kids. So I know every time I'd return to Canada, I'd go down to Rhode Island for a couple of weeks, do the investigation, come back to Canada. I know I ended up starting to go back to church. I come from a Roman Catholic background, so I started to go into church there for a little while, and really thinking things over, and really understood why you shouldn't provoke things, because when I was down there, I was doing some religious provocation things and getting responses. Might not necessarily be right away like in the movies, but at least 24 hours later we would get a response, and
Well,
that's why
it's
they
time for
tell you.
it's time for another station break. Elliot and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So please stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Can ghosts make you sick? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing the observer effect of paranormal investigation is Elliott Van Dusen, PPRI.net. Elliot, many investigators describe feeling physically or emotionally drained after an investigation. Have you experienced any personal effects from long-term exposure to this kind of work?
Oh yeah, the Exeter case. It had a very oppressive feeling in the home, and there were times where you felt very lethargic, no energy, um, almost very like depressed. And we'd say that to the homeowner, like, let's take a break, let's get out of here, go for lunch or something. And as soon as you started to drive away from the home, you immediately felt better. You were wide awake again, and certainly feeling better. I know when they brought a medium into the house once to kind of do a house cleansing as well, the father had to sit down. He was sick to his stomach, felt like he was going to puke. So certainly, I do believe that it can have some physiological and psychological effects. Through case studies, we know that there's been people reporting oppression, depression, isolation type behaviors. That's certainly a interesting mystery within a mystery on how that can happen.
Hmm. So, what's your take on psychic mediums and their role in investigations? Can intuition and evidence coexist in the same field?
Yeah, I mean, I think I gave a couple of examples earlier in the show there with Jody. She. I think if you had the right person that knows how to use their skill set, um, then it can be very valuable. Certainly, your job as an investigator is you have to try and corroborate that information. For example, we just came back from Ottawa House Museum this past weekend, and there was a lady there that was obviously quite intuitive, and she was asking me how we would get information if PPRI were to investigate. How would we get information, historical information about this place? And I said, well, what's your question? And she said, well, I kept sensing that there was a soldier in this house that had an injury to his stomach. And he was basically alluding to her that he had been awarded this position and he didn't really deserve the position. And something happened, whether somebody turned on him and injured him or he injured himself. And I said, we did ask for a knowledgeable historian to be on staff tonight to answer questions. So let's go talk to them. And they didn't have any information about a soldier dying at the property, but they said that soldiers would stay at the Ottawa House Museum quite frequently because it would sometimes be used as like an inn or a stopover. So it was quite possible. So in that case, you couldn't really corroborate it and say, one way or the other. But then when we looked at the Amherst case where the gentleman had died of the heart attack, lived at the property, died at the property, and then we found the death record that says, yes, this guy lived at the property and did die at the property because they had the location of death on there. That's corroborated. That's pretty substantial. So I do think that it's valuable. Just unfortunately, sometimes you just can't find that corroborative information. It's not like on TV where they're giving you the name and the date of birth and check underneath this this floorboard and you'll find the body. It's usually not that detailed, unfortunately. You got to do some work.
How does PPRI collaborate with other international research organizations or universities?
Yeah, so in Nova Scotia, I reached out to all of our psychology and sociology departments at the universities, and I let them know that we exist. Because I know sometimes when people are out there and they need help, they don't know who to turn to. So sometimes they do turn to universities, especially the psychology departments. So I have done that. I've actually reached out to the head of the Catholic Church for Nova Scotia as well and let them know that we exist. I did get a response from them just thanking them for our letter and letting him know that we exist. Also with other scientists, for example, we had one case where I realized that it was mental health and not so much the paranormal. I mean, maybe there was paranormal activity happening, but the primary concern was mental health issues. And I realized that she needed to speak to a clinical parapsychologist, which is a practicing psychiatrist or psychologist that has an understanding in parapsychology, but is also licensed to help. So I reached out to Dr. Jim Horan in Texas because our client was in Texas, and he ended up being able to assist in that investigation. We were able to provide him with all of our disclosure, everything that we collected, the statements, the photographs, of course, with the client's consent. And he ended up publishing in the Frontiers of Psychology, a peer-reviewed journal about our case, and thanked paranormal phenomena research and investigation for their thorough investigative work and contributing to writing that article. So we do certainly work with other researchers out there and also local universities and colleges.
You've emphasized ethics and professionalism in the field. Why is that so vital to maintaining the credibility of paranormal research?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually for part of the Halifax Paranormal Symposium. I noticed on Facebook my press release got shared, and I was going through the comments and reading it, and a lot of the comments were from non-believers and naysayers and stuff like that. And it's funny because obviously the stigma around the paranormal still exists. I haven't seen it for a while, I guess mostly because the people that I hang out with are believers. I would assume so. Even if they're skeptical, I mean, they're still somewhat open-minded. But clearly that shows that there's still stigma involved with the paranormal. So, certainly we take everything serious. We use the scientific method. We try and corroborate as much as we can. We use scientific tools. If it's something is outside of our expertise, then we will contact somebody else, like in the case with needing a clinical parapsychologist. I do have a psychiatrist on my staff now, Dr. Craig Goss. He just joined us about a year ago, actually. So it's really nice to have him on staff because he's a practicing psychiatrist. And any case that has even a hint of mental health, I usually assign him to. So it's really fascinating. We're actually going to be doing a study here because he believes that people that experience the paranormal are going to score higher on the dissociation skill. And I always tell people, when I'm talking, if you're getting bored and you tune me out, that's a form of dissociation. But another good example is, when you leave work and all of a sudden you're pulling into your driveway and you're like, oh my God, how did I get here? I don't remember driving home for the last half hour. That's also dissociation. Your mind has, left, so to speak, and you were operating on autopilot. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's, something that we're curious about and doing our own research on.
In your opinion, what direction does the next generation of paranormal investigators need to take if this field is ever to be accepted by mainstream science?
Yeah, certainly I think that education's important, and there's not a ton of places to get education. I know academics are trying to do a lot of citizen scientist programs, so they're trying to have mentors. Scientists are trying to mentor amateurs that are interested in this and teach them best methods and best practices to do investigations, because they do realize that people are really interested in the paranormal and they're out there trying to collect audio clips and photographs, and there's a lot more amateurs out there than there are professionals doing field work. So they do realize that they are collecting valuable data. So if there's a way that they can teach them to do it without it being contaminated, or that it's not another phenomena like audio pareidolia or visual pareidolia, then certainly that is bringing credibility to the field. We operate our Parapsychological Education Center, which is an online paranormal course place that you can take courses. And I try and get different experts to teach different courses. So, for example, when we do our Investigating UFO course, I get Chris Stiles. He's been investigating UFOs for over 30 years. There's no person better to teach that course than him. Daryl and I usually teach the parapsychology course. That's all we've done for the last 30 years. So we try and get experts, and even introduction to demonology, I'll get a religious expert to come on. For the students. And of course, when we do the student feedback, they all find that very valuable. So there's only a few different, institutions out there. Us, the Ryan Education Center is another valuable asset. And then universities usually do like a one-off course. I've taken like a witchcraft course from University of Ottawa. So you really have to look around for education. But I think educating yourself and knowing, what the tools do, having best practices and policies. I think all that is very, very valuable to the next generation.
How has public interest in the paranormal evolved in the last decade? And what do you think what do you think fuels the current surge in curiosity and media coverage?
Well, I mean, we're always interested in ghosts. Even skeptics, I always laugh. Like if you run into somebody that's skeptical, they might not be a believer, but I notice once you start telling a true ghost story, they can't help but go quiet and listen. So certainly even the skeptics are interested in it. So I just think it's something that we're all fascinated in. We all love a good ghost story or something unexplained. We find it entertaining. We do a lot of the public ghost hunts, but we do it a little bit differently. I bring like an educational aspect to it. So I can almost guarantee, I guess I'd have to take a few other people's, public ghost hunts, but I can almost guarantee ours is different just because we do bring that credibility to it, where we explain to them what the tools are actually for. We talk about the research that's been done, and they walk away with, some valuable educational knowledge. So I do think that, that's certainly one aspect.
What role do you see media, radio, television, and podcasts playing in either helping or harming legitimate research into the unexplained phenomenon?
Well, positives of radio shows and television and podcasts is that you're getting the information out there. The downside would be whether or not it's credible information or not. I guess it would be up to the podcast hosts or the producers to do their background check on who they have on their show, if they are worried about credibility on the show. But it's certainly a quick way to get information out there. A lot of people listen to podcasts. I know it's helped us. We sometimes get people emailing us saying, "Hey, I heard you on the X Zone," or I know one year I was looking for information about the Westin Hotel. Daryl and I had always heard it was haunted downtown Halifax, but nobody had any stories. Daryl didn't have any in his books. Steve Vernon didn't have any in his ghost books. Vernon Oikel didn't have any in his. I even went as far back as Helen Creighton, the original folklorist that started the ghost craze in Nova Scotia, and she didn't have anything there. But after doing some social media posts, we were getting a few different people that had previously worked there that were sharing their experiences with us. So certainly,
Well,
it has a very beneficial aspect to it.
we're going to have to take another station break. Please stay with us as Elliot and I continue to explore supernatural inquiry. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. Where can a person learn about paranormal investigation? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Elliott Van Dusen, director of PPRI.net. Elliott, let's talk about the 2005 Halifax Paranormal Symposium. What can attendees expect from the event?
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. This is our third annual Halifax Paranormal Symposium. We realize that there's not a whole lot of paranormal conferences in Canada, and so we wanted to bring something back to Canada, and it had to be a mix of educational information, academic, but also entertainment, because I found when things are too academic, you start to lose the general population. So we've kind of found a happy medium, I would say, because we're into our third year. This is so far our best year. I think we only have like 95 seats left out of 200. And we still have a month to go. November 1st is when the symposium is taking place on Saturday, November 1st at the Halifax Tower Hotel and Conference Center in Bayers Lake, Nova Scotia. And it'll be from 9 to 6. I have 5 guest speakers coming. I have Dr. Yana Greenberg talking to us about ancient astronauts or aliens. I have Tony Rathman coming to talk to us about electronic voice phenomena. And then after lunch, he's actually going to do a live demonstration with his device that he's developed. It's called Staticom. And he believes that you can talk to the dead in real time. And he did a demonstration with myself and Dr. Yana. We were asking questions about the afterlife. We weren't really getting any answers that we wanted, but all of a sudden I said to Yana, why don't you speak Russian to them? Because she speaks Russian. And when she did, the voices on the other end started to make fun of Russians and told her that Russian wasn't a real language. And it was kind of funny. It kind of upset Dr. Yana because she's very proud of her Russian heritage, but I thought it was interesting because it doesn't use radio signals or anything like that. So the conversation became relevant at that point. So it'll be really interesting at the symposium. If you buy your general admission ticket, you'll possibly get picked because in the workshop, we're going to pick people out of the crowd to come up on stage and talk into Statacom, and perhaps you'll get a message that means something to you. We also have Brian Baker coming from Toronto. He's a journalist. He's going to talk to us about his experience with cryptozoology. And we also have my investigator, Pierre Filatro, is going to come and talk to us about Ouija boards. And then we have the CEO of Paraflix, which I call the Netflix of the paranormal. It's a streaming service that just streams paranormal shows. Natalie Jones is going to come talk to us about awakening your higher self and energy healing, positive, energy and intention. So really looking forward to the lineup this year. I try and change the guest speakers and the topics every year, so you just never know what you're going to get.
What inspired you to create the symposium, and how has it grown since its inception?
Yeah, it's still a one-day event. I'm hoping next year we can move it to a 2 full-day event. We've also incorporated some workshops this year, which were very popular. We've got a ghost hunt at Alexander Keith's Brewery, which sold out very quickly. And we also are doing a Laura Warren Live. She's a medium. Workshop. And again, we limited that to 40 people, and that sold out as well. So I'm hoping next year we can expand to 2 full days. So we've certainly almost grown to that point, which is really good, because the first year when I did this, I funded the entire thing out of my own pocket. We had a few sponsors that donated cash, but I took a big risk by funding it out of my own pocket and out of the nonprofit's pocket. So it's a risk that obviously has paid off for us, and it's something that we're able to keep going. So my main goal was to create awareness, of these paranormal topics, and also provide a safe space for people to come. Like I said, I saw that social media post, a lot of naysayers on there, and making fun of the paranormal, but everyone that comes to the Paranormal Symposium can't believe. They look around and there's like over 100 other people that have, the same thoughts that they do. And they feel like they're part of a community and like-mindedness. And I love that aspect about the symposium.
Have you ever had any paranormal events happen at a symposium?
Not yet. No,
Well, maybe this
the
is the
Halifax
year.
Tower. Yeah, maybe it is the year. No, the Halifax Paranormal Symposium is held at the Halifax Tower Hotel. It's a fairly new hotel. It's only been in operation, I'd say, for 4 years. It's got 16 floors. It's beautiful. The owner spared no expense. It's all like tile, and it's just a gorgeous venue. So as far as I know, they haven't had any haunting issues or anything like that. Not like some of the older hotels in Halifax.
Have you found in your investigations that sometimes the expectation of the people that are investigating actually create a phenomenon?
No, you know what? I haven't run into that. I have run into people though that have contacted us, and initially, like, we always ask the client, like, what do you expect out of this investigation? And they always say that they're either looking for validation from a third party, that they're not crazy. Some people might say that they're hoping that the phenomena stops. We always tell them we can't guarantee that because nobody can. But no, for the most part, I think the worst we've run into is when we've found an explanation that's not paranormal, and we're trying to tell them that, and they don't want to hear that. They were almost hoping that we would come in and confirm that their place is haunted. So that obviously is a little bit difficult because you're dealing with a difficult client.
Do you have provision to clear out a house if you do find it haunted?
I get Jody to do like house cleansing, so she uses like sage and goes around and does a house cleansing. We do have some religious advisors, not in Nova Scotia. I've got 2 in Ontario, 1 in Rhode Island. If it was something more, or a Roman Catholic family or a Catholic family wanted that kind of blessing, we do have that capability. But I always explain to people, like, we can't guarantee that to get rid of the activity. And I always equate it to my policing days. If you have an unwanted guest in your house, you can do one of 3 things. You can ask them to leave, you can grab them and throw them out, or you can call the Mounties and we'll come do it for you. But in the spiritual world, that person doesn't have a physical body. So you can ask the person to leave, or like a lady told me this past weekend, they had to say our master bedroom was off limits. They always felt like they were being watched in the master bedroom. So they said, master bedroom's off limits, go elsewhere in the house. And that's it. That's all we can do is ask, because there's no proton packs. There's no Ghostbusters. There's no containment unit. So all you can do is ask and try. But ultimately, we just don't have that capability to make the activity stop.
What role does the symposium play in bringing credibility, collaboration, and education to the paranormal research community in Canada and abroad?
Well, certainly, we've had some really, good quality guest speakers over the past 3 years. We've had John Kruth was one of my favorites. He's the executive director of the Ryan Research Center. So we had him last year. He came, he spoke to us about psychokinesis, particularly electronic psychokinesis. So people that can affect computer systems. Some people say, "Oh, computers hate me. I'll sit in front of it and I get the blue screen of death all the time." Well, John's actually done research and showing that there are some people that give off energy and photons that do affect electronics. I think bringing in some credible speakers, another really, credible and interesting gentleman that we brought in was Dr. Richard Gallagher, who's a psychiatrist down in the U.S. that believes in demonic possession. Certainly bringing in those types of guest speakers that have the background and the education and the credibility to come to Halifax and present their work, certainly, I think, boasts the credibility of the symposium. My volunteers all come, my investigators all come, they volunteer their time for the symposium, and people always find them so friendly and helpful. And, I try and bring some comedic relief too when I'm there. I know our first year we were having a terrible time with the sound system, and I kept making some jokes and stuff like that. And on our survey, people were saying, the poor guy, like, he did his best. It wasn't his fault. It's the hotel sound system, but he was entertaining, and wish we would have heard more from him. He seemed like he had so much knowledge that he could have shared. So then for our second year, I decided to speak there, so that, and I talked about law enforcement and the paranormal. So we do listen to feedback that we get about the symposium, and we do try and accommodate that.
So finally, what message do you want attendees and the general public to take away from the 2025 Halifax Paranormal Symposium about the future of paranormal science and the evolution of human consciousness?
You know what? I think the message, if somebody attends there this year and they walk away, just to walk away thinking, with an open mind of what they just heard, if they're skeptical, to know that they're not alone, that there, is a community out there right here in their own neighborhood that has an interest in this, and to know that, our organization, PPRI, is out there doing incredible research and education events, and that we're available to assist as well if them or somebody they know is being affected or has questions about the supernatural and want answers.
Do you find that the very existence of someone that's trying to credibly look at paranormal gives people hope that they aren't losing their mind if they do have an experience?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like a lot of people that do contact us, they are just looking for like validation that that they're not crazy and that something might be going on. Other times too, we solve the mystery. We had a photograph given to us by a lady. She said her and her friends were playing with the Ouija board one night, and then the next day she took this photograph, and it looked like there was a face standing in her kitchen, and wasn't your typical ghost photo that I see, wasn't just orbs of light. So anyway, we looked at it and had my professional photographer examine it, and we noticed the face wasn't in the kitchen behind the screen; it was on the screen. And so we did a little science experiment. I had my wife press her face against our screen. We had a very similar screen, and sure enough, it left a very similar face imprint. So I had the homeowner go and take a photo of the screen again. So this would have been like about 2 weeks from when the photo was taken. And you could just faintly see that the face was still there. But when she sent us the second picture, in the bottom right hand corner, you could see that there was a pool. And so I asked her, I said, "Do you have kids?" And she said, "Yep." And I said, "Do they ever just scream through the screen door asking for a drink or a snack?" And she goes, "Oh God, yeah, all the time." So we were able to piece it together based on everything that, somebody most likely pressed her face against the screen and left that face imprint. And she was completely happy. She wasn't trying to prank us or hoax us. She was
Elliot,
just wanting to make sure there wasn't something scary in her house.
unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always a great time.
Always a great time. Once again, our guest today has been Elliott Van Dusen, Director of PPRI.net and key organizer of the upcoming 2025 Halifax Paranormal Symposium taking place November 21st in Halifax, Nova Scotia. For more information about Elliott, his work, and the symposium, visit www.ppri.net. Please be sure to join us again next time. This mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our evolving world.